Ya Allah, pensyarah ni bersara. Profesor Mahdi anak dia 16 orang. Ada 6 orang sekolah lagi.
Oh, ya.
So 16 orang anak, tak tahu ini berapa ni. Lepas tu dia buat e-hailing lah. Mesti ramai orang cari dia. Antara
Luqman.
berita harian.
I need that poetry Omar Khayyam tu. Can you hantar sekejap? Ya. Luqman, this is his death date kan?
Death date, yes.
Yeah. It's about the time of Ghazali.
Oh, 3 orang isteri. Lepas tu kena kerja keras lah. 16 orang anak. Ingatkan seorang anak, seorang isteri. Okey, kita tekan. Kita on kan. Nanti kan masukkan dalam grup. Okay, kita on kan dulu tapi without sound.
The volume is okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Are we okay? The volume?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi syrah li sadri wa sir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I would like to thank God for this opportunity for us to be here again. First time in 2026. And we are in Sha'ban, another about 20 days we are going to enjoy Ramadan, inshallah. Then during this opportunity, I would like to thank Professor Zainiy again for this opportunity. And today we are going to discuss a chapter in the book of Prolegomena, chapter 6 on quiddity and essence. Yeah. So I don't want to prolong this discussion. It's a very important topic. I think Professor Zainiy is translating this into Malay. I was told.
Yeah, I have translated it. It's still in draft format.
Yeah, draft format, and going to be published soon.
Inshallah.
Hopefully, we can buy the book or have the copy during Pesta Buku Malaysia in May, and I don't know. That's the intention. Many book writers at the moment to get it done before the launching of the Pesta Buku. So with that, Prof. Zainiy, all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dato. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, salatu wassalamu ala anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I'd like to thank Dato again for this opportunity, to discuss some very important works, and which I think Professor al-Attas is one of the great thinker, writer, scholar, which I think his legacy would be these great ideas that he left behind. And for a reason which I would like to again draw to your attention. Remember, the book is titled Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. I think for many of us, one of the main questions would be, what is metaphysics? Isn't it? And why a writer and an Islamic scholar, a Muslim philosopher, thinker, and someone who's really deep into the issue of metaphysics bring this discussion? That's, I think that basically escaped the consideration of many. We just took it for granted, partly because the earlier chapters were reminiscent of his earlier works, like the chapter on Islam, the foundation, the concept of religion, foundation of ethics and morality, and then the meaning of happiness. So that's somehow like a mundane kind of thing, isn't it? But why did he encapsulate this, make it the chapters of what is called an exposition of fundamental elements of the worldview of Islam, metaphysics? Well, this is something which, to me, for many of us, we might think that it is an accident in history, but we Muslims don't believe in that. We believe in everything has been structured, planned by Allah Ta'ala. So I like to bring your attention to the work by my late teacher also, Professor Fazlur Rahman at the University of Chicago. He wrote a book called Islam and Modernity, and it was part of our reading requirement at the University of Chicago. And sometimes when you read something, it doesn't really jump out of the page and catch your imagination, but somehow it lurks in the back of your mind. And suddenly, when you read something, that thing just jumps out and stares in your face. So this is written in 1995. Rahman wrote Prolegomena, I think, in the 80s. And this is what he said.
84.
84? Islam and Modernity.
Yeah. Paperback edition, 1982.
Yep. He says, metaphysics, and this is on the chapter 4 about suggestions. And I encourage you to read that book, because he talks about the problem of Islamic education and what should be, what Muslims, thinkers and educators should look and think about the future. So this is why I was saying last time that this book, Prolegomena to Metaphysics of Islam, should be read by every professor at the universities in Malaysia, really, because we forgot the philosophical foundation of what education is, and we forgot the Muslim interpretation of how education and what actually happened in the psychology of the person when you receive knowledge. That has never been discussed. We took knowledge and the teaching as a process, isn't it? But not actually what goes in. And this is why when you study physics, you are studying empirical dimensions of the world. You don't really study what happens to you when you study physics. And this is why I remember when I was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I was part of what is called the physics club. It's pretty much like, I was telling my wife, it's pretty much like what you can see the Big Bang Theory. Because, you know, we're a bunch of people who were crazy doing, you know, problems in our physics club. When we were off to graduate school, I think one of my classmates, she was at that age, 13 years old, she went to Harvard, 18 years old, she graduated with a PhD. Then she went off somewhere in Europe, become a professor of some advanced mathematics. One Japanese guy went to Caltech, I think. One guy went to Urbana-Champaign. I went to Chicago to pursue this. So one time I came back and to the University of Wisconsin, and I bumped into my old friend at the Rust Keller, near the Red Old Gym, and said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I'm at the University of Chicago." "What are you studying?" I said, "I'm studying, you know, Islamic thought." "Oh, yeah. It's either you go into real hard physics or you go into philosophy." So, but you know, if you follow some recent physicists, some of them have been given serious thought about the returning of philosophy and metaphysics and the discussion of physics in general. Because at a certain point, because there is a lack of a philosophical foundation of hard sciences. You become too empirical, you don't know where you're going. And empirical sciences is basically, the philosophical basis of it is Aristotelian. Things coming out of things, you know, tawallud, generation, the idea of generation in philosophical term of Aristotelian physics, that from things, other things come into being. But what happens before that? This is why one of the fundamental questions in physics is basic cause and effect. So who's actually the very first cause of things? Right? Too difficult. So metaphysics, Fazlur Rahman says, in my understanding, is the unity of knowledge and the meaning and orientation this unity gives to life. Now, where do we teach this at the university? We don't.
Page what?
This is page 132. We don't. We are missing this part, even at the graduate level, because at the graduate level you go even more, more furu'iyah, even more smaller details. You know, they say that Dato Seri knows very well. You know, PhD is knowledge about small thing.
Small thing.
So what about the bigger picture? We've been missing that bigger picture, and this is where what Professor al-Attas is trying to do is trying to give back that bigger picture. This is why he says it's an exposition of the fundamental elements of the world view of Islam. So the world view of Islam, we're not talking about the world, but it's what he says, ru'yatul Islam lil wujud, you know, the projection of Islam about what existence is all about. So existence is both physical and non-physical. So when you talk about non-physical, the present day mind find it very difficult, as I said the last time. How is it that you can believe in something non-physical? But we do believe in numbers, they are non-physical. We do believe in the efficacy of some strange formulas, physics formulas, mathematical formulas that have been, you know, strung together as if, you know, these are inviolable laws of the world, you know, as if, you know, if you violate this, then you are not of this world, something like that. So I found this quite amazing. This is why I was telling Professor al-Attas upon reading this book when it was in draft. And I remember he also asked me for a copy of my book of Islam and Modernity, and I think in the few pages he was making marks on the margin, basically. So I was saying to him, and I said this in my book, Al-Attas' Psychology, that unknowingly or somehow Professor al-Attas answered this question of Fazlur Rahman, because he said the following line: there has not been much by way of an Islamic metaphysics, at least in the modern times. In the medieval centuries, there were Muslim metaphysicians, and he's talking about medieval, like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You have the age of Newton and whatever, becoming that. So this is the age of Ghazali. This is the age of Ruzbihani Bakli Shirazi, whom I'm going to mention a little bit. So the 13th century, and this is why 13th, 14th, 15th century, the production of Muslim knowledge. Right? Remember, I talked about Nuwairi's book, Nihayatul Arab fil Funun wal Adab. That's Mamluk time. That's 13th or 14th century. One person can produce multi-volume work. That's the kind of immensity of grasp of knowledge that we have. That's because of the worldview that they have. The metaphysics is clear. The metaphysics was clear to them. But now, when we teach religion, it's become amal, not the worldview, not the metaphysical foundation of it, which we regard as something. Well, the problem is, they say it's part of Usuluddin. Not really, because Usuluddin, we teach them, we teach Usuluddin as almost like when you introduce some people with equations and mathematical formulas, which is very difficult for people to understand the background of it. Usuluddin is a discussion of kalam, isn't it? And kalam is a reaction to philosophy. But we don't teach philosophy, you see? And we don't teach the antagonistic ideas that was brought out by philosophers that the kalam, mutakallim, tried to answer. And then by 13th century, 14th century, then there's a rise of what is called the rise of the tariqah, the turuq of the Sufiya. But then they look, that was only a matter of, let's say, they look at the amal part, but they forgot to see the metaphysical foundation that the Sufis brought in the minds, the great minds of like Ghazali, Bakli Shirazi, Jami, and all the rest, the lines of the lines of great minds that I mentioned last time that we were here. And I think this is why Professor al-Attas is a great mind of this century, because right after Raniri and Pansuri, nobody else talks about this in greater detail, that somehow answers our contemporary problems. This is what Rahman was saying. He was lamenting there has not been much by way of an Islamic metaphysics. But then he did say, in modern times, Muhammad Iqbal's reconstruction of religious thought in Islam is the only systematic attempt. But despite the fact that Iqbal has had certain basic and rare insights into the nature of Islam as an attitude of life. This is it. Metaphysics will give you an attitude of life. See? We don't have that. We think religion will do, not because religion has been consigned into the amal, just practice, and it's only in the masjid. Outside the masjid, you do not know how to deal. What is the meaning of oil pollution? What is the meaning of nuclear waste? Because our understanding of fiqh, najasa, or tahara, what is it called? Air mutlaq. And then mushammas. But nuclear waste, the water is basically hot water. They call it hot water partly because it's hot. But inside there are elements which are radioactive, which are colorless, odorless, tasteless. So if you do not know nuclear engineering, nuclear physics, nuclear chemistry, that's it. It's not part of Islamic fiqh, of a tahara. And that's why for us, nuclear accidents in Fukushima, we just, it is not something that we feel that we are the guardians of the universe, that this is something that will somehow affect what is called ayah mutlaq. There's no Islamic reaction to nuclear, because we don't build in, to see. This is what I was saying at one point, but people find it very difficult. Because our ustaz was never trained in the ma'mal, in the laboratory. So they have no sense of it, you know. This is the problem. Even fiqh nisa, it is basically part of it is obigaini. But we divorce, meaning we separate obstetrician and gynecology from fiqh nisa. We have not merged it. So one of the things that the Sharia compliant hospital should do now is basically bring this back. It's not just making people easy to pray, know some dua when you're sick. No, I remember when I was a committee member with Dato Naquib, this is what I was meaning, and I said the whole service industry must be Sharia compliant. And what it means is that to rearrange our fiqh again. But you cannot rearrange your fiqh when your metaphysics is not clear.
What is metaphysics in the simple Malay words?
Okay. That's the right question, Dato Sri, because this is exactly why it is now, we are negligent of it. Metaphysics, in part of it is usuluddin. But there are some part of it which belongs to the physical, which are unseen. We don't regard that as part of our iman. We regard that as part of physics and realm of the, kalau mathematics called imaginary numbers, you know, things like that. So, what is metaphysics in Islam? We go through what it means from Arabic. It's in Arabic, it's ma ba'da tabi'ah, what is beyond what is physical. So what we can see is the physical part. Ma ba'da tabi'ah is what we cannot see. In Islamic term, is alam ghaib. But once you say alam ghaib, ini mistik, alam jin, roh, hantu. No, this is where we need to understand our metaphysical foundation, and Prof. al-Attas rightly said in his chapter, the chapter that we see, which is quiddity and essence. So I'll show you, because sometimes we don't pay attention to the subtitle of books, you know. Quiddity and essence is the outline of the basic structure or the reality of Islamic metaphysics. The structure of reality in Islamic metaphysics. So this is why we cannot find the right word. So I translate metaphysics as ru'ya haqa'iq. Because if I were to say ru'ya wujud, a big problem. Because of course that's what Prof. al-Attas translate the word for worldview. Ru'yatul Islam lil wujud. That's worldview in Islam. Because wujud encompasses all. And this is what we're going to discuss in quiddity and essence. Where to situate wujud. Because what he will be discussing, and we will be going in a little bit, is the matter of how we understand wujud. So, how to understand metaphysics is the understanding of the haqa'iq. So you see why now we cannot appreciate that word? Because the word haqa'iq is the plural of haqiqah. That word in Malay is now slowly going into space. Nobody wants to use the word haqiqat anymore. We translate with the word reality. But again, we don't know what it means, reality. And this is why I said this word is very fundamental. Reality. See? Structure of reality. This is why we need to discuss about it again. To put in a simple Terengganu dialect, Kelantan, kepala kita dah tergeliat sikit. We have been turned in a way that we cannot really see the reality in Islam. We are not discussing about reality, so much so that alam barzakh, alam ghaib, alam al-mithal, the discussions of our great ulama of Ghazali and others of the past, that was so real in their mind, become something which is entirely alien in our days today. Betul tak? Yeah, because the mentioning of the word alam ghaib, oh my God. Yeah, what is this? But we have a whole writings about ghaib. You know, for example, when we talked about things that belong under alam ghaib, for example, we talked about malaika. Of course, they will make fun of us about it. But there are other things that we want to talk about. Primarily, is the world of existence and the class of existence, the degrees of existence. Okay, so, but you know, if you were to read more from the evaluation of Rahman about Shismu Yani Iqbal, you will realize, and Rahman is in agreement with Prof. al-Attas, that Iqbal was writing reconstruction of religious thought in Islam, and what other poetries that he was writing, he got the impetus from Muslim metaphysicians, whom Prof. al-Attas says are Sufis. But he somehow attributed them to the ideas of Western philosophers like Bergson and others, you know. So that's a very sad thing. In my estimation, I think in my epilogue of al-Attas' psychology, I mentioned at the suggestion of Shafiq, my student, said, Prof, maybe you should mention here that Prof. al-Attas is the only one in modern times, you know, after Kant and then Iqbal, resurrect this discussion of metaphysics. So that's what I said. So unbeknownst to Rahman and others, that Prof. al-Attas has somehow produced this, and this is quite fascinating to me. So one of the things, one aspect that we'll be discussing, Dato, about metaphysical discussion, is what he was discussing last time, the intuition of existence. That is a metaphysical experience, but experienced physically. And that's what Prof. al-Attas is trying to tell you, and us, basically. Where was the first experience of this intuition of existence? It's at Alastu bi Rabbikum. And this is what I've been trying to explain, that this has not been taught as the foundation of religion. Our foundation of religion starts, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Yeah, but before that, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, in the physical form, there was فَأَشْهَدَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ بَلَا شَهِدْنَا. That was the first instant of Shahada. And that was when Allah Ta'ala gathers all the progeny of Adam. That is metaphysics. That is metaphysics. That's not imaginary in the meaning of made up kind of thing. No, it is true and real because it's in the Quran. And this is what I found quite encouraging from Professor al-Attas, because not many scholars, ulama in the past has used that verse to talk about intuition of existence. That was the first intuition of existence, and everybody, Muslim, non-Muslim, experienced it. See? That is very fundamental. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ فَأَشْهَدَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَا شَهِدْنَا. Many of us would remember that, but the following verse is very fascinating. أَن تَقُولُوا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ. The word ghafil, this is what is happening for us today. Ghafilin, unmindful, negligent. The metaphysics part of it. We were negligent. We forgot the event. The event is very metaphysical, but it's real. The other metaphysical aspect that is true and real, Dato' Sri, is the meaning that has arrived in your soul. Because it's not in your head. This, all books that you have somehow touched, the number of pages, you may have read more than 1,000 pages, Dato' Sri. But doesn't expand your mind to 1,000 pages. It is collected in the body of your soul. And that's very spiritual experience. That's metaphysical experience. So, how is that experience very important? And what's been discussed last time also, remember we talked about Khalqan Jadid, the constant renewal of creation. And so this is why I want to bring back to you to somehow appreciate that our scholars were not writing in the air. They were one concerted, they share one Islamic worldview and one metaphysical dimension. This is from Khayyam, as I said. I share one, maybe I spare you the Persian. It's translated by Edward Fitzgerald. Because we're going to talk about quiddity and essence, so I give you the sweetness of the poetry first. Oh my beloved, fill the cup that clears today of past regrets and future fears. What is that cup? Westerners, when they read this, because Edward Fitzgerald and because Khayyam wrote, talks about wine, drink, they think it's red wine. They think it's the real wine. No, nothing doing with real wine. Because we Sufis of this kind, they don't talk about wine in that regard. They have no use for that. They're referring to the knowledge that Allah Ta'ala gifted to someone. And I'll show you where it is. Yeah. Oh, beloved, fill the cup that clears. The cup is actually the ayanu thabita, our permanent archetypes, our so-called essences, quiddity and essence. Our essence that has not yet been gifted our dimensions of wusuk, our risk, our knowledge, our age, our this, our that. So this is it. Fill the cup that clears today of past regrets and future fears. So how is it that you can clear past regret and future fears? The khalqan jadid. You are recreated at every moment anew, but retaining your old identity in the past. That is why this Zainiy is different from that Zainiy. The name is the same. The reality is different. The haqiqah, because his mahiyya is different from mine. Okay? Although we have the same quality of we exist, but his quiddity becomes different, because something that we will talk about later on. So, but here's the fascinating part. Tomorrow, why? Tomorrow I may be myself with yesterday's 7,000 years. I showed this Prof. al-Attas. I said, this is very fascinating, Prof. al-Attas. You calculated the age of Adam, 7,165. And here Khayyam says, I'm with myself. Yani bima'na self, you know. Self is the soul, with the nafs. And the nafs is what is human being. And that's fascinating. It says here, Bo hafte hezare soligon sare barim. I'm with the 7,000 years in the past. So, can you imagine? I mean, a person in 20,000 something calculating. This is the fascinating thing about Prophet. You know, he calculated the date of Terengganu inscription right to the dot, and now he calculated the year for Adam alayhi salam in agreement with Umar Khayyam. You know, so the earlier you go back, the more accurate it is, isn't it? So he's right there in the ballpark. A difference of about 1,165 years, which is not bad, really. So here's an example of how Umar Khayyam, an astronomer, can write a poetry that explicate the Islamic metaphysics of Khalqan Jadid, recreation, and puts in the idea of creation of Adam. You know, today's astronomer won't be able to do that. Don't talk about Muslim astronomers. We're not trained in that at all. Okay, so again on the Khalqan Jadid, Dato. We go back to the book of Intuition of Existence, because I forgot to mention the last time, Dato. I really wanted to, but I couldn't find the page, but it's in the early beginning. So remember we talked about, he says, fill the cup, you know, that clears of past fears and future fears, past regrets and future fears. And I said that it is the Ayanu Thabita, right? The Intuition of Existence, page 12. Remember we talked about passing away, the fana and all that, because recreated again at a certain level, you are, for those who are really aware of their Khalqan Jadid, they can experience the fana and baqa in a very conscious level. But again, Prophet al-Attas says, you know, this is dependent on the person's readiness, and also he's gifted by Allah Ta'ala. It's among the few pages at the beginning to see if you're following.
Sure. Yeah, it's okay, it's okay. You just read, and then you can find out.
The man at this stage that has passed away, from passing away, in exchange for that, God has deprived him of, because, you know, he passed away. So there's something of element being deprived of. God puts in the man, without incarnation, meaning without something from God entering him, yani hulul, a spiritual substance, latifa, in which of his essence, that, something from him, but not him, okay, which is وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. and neither separate from him nor join to him. So Allah Ta'ala blew into him, but that something that he blew did not come from him to become part of him. It's something else. And this is why you need to think about this deeply. And Prof. al-Attas has been his advice always, when you read his book, you have to read it slow and think. Okay? God's revelation of an aspect of him, that's what it is. He gave the man an understanding of him. That's what awwaluddin ma'rifatullah alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala shahidna. Otherwise, if we don't know God, isn't it? So God's revelation of an aspect of him is made to that spiritual substance, and that is called Holy Spirit, Ruhul Qudus. Now, for somebody reading this, must say, what? We get Ruhul Qudus? We get Holy Spirit? No. And this is why you must read the Quran. Where is it? Here. It is in Surah Mujadilah. It is in Surah Mujadilah. Sorry. If this were to be in a classroom, it would be more fascinating. Surah Mujadilah, and this is the tafsir by Ruzbihani Bakli Shirazi, who died in the year 606 Hijrah, which is about the time of Ghazali. So you can imagine that time, Ghazali and others, they were very vibrant in this thought, you know. And this is what he says. I forgot which verse this is. Yeah, Mujadilah. The verse is 66. Okay. Ulaika kataballah fi qulubihim. Allah Ta'ala wrote in their heart, not in their intellect. And this is something that we must understand about metaphysical dimensions in Islam, because the ruh is one thing, one reality, and then there's the qalb, and there's intellect. Qalb is the heart, there's the intellect, and there's the nafs. But here Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, kataba fi qulubihim, not in their akal, not in their nafs, not in the ruh, but in the qulub. That's why the function of the qalb, which Prof. al-Attas is the only one in modern times that brought about, again, the primacy of the discussion of the qalb. Kataba Allah fi qulubihim al-iman. Allah Ta'ala written on their hearts, iman. And the word following, wa ayyadahum bi ruhin minhu. That's it. And he strengthened them. He fortified them with ruh from him, bi ruhin minhu. So in many verses in the Quran, there were instances where the Quran made references that Allah Ta'ala sent ruh, like Maryam. Okay? But that's the angel. But in this case, no, it's not the angel. It's not the angel. It says here that what it means by biruhi minhu. The tafsir of Araishul Bayan. Panjang. Kataba bisifatihi fi qulubihim. He wrote based on his attributes. So this is why yang dikatakan the discussion about khalaqa Adam ala suratihi, bermakna khalaqa Adam bi surati sifat, asma wa sifatihi. That's what it is. It's not in the form of God's form, but the form of his names and attributes. And this is why we have beauty, we have this, we have that. So kataba بصفاته في قلوبهم بنعت ظهورها في قلوبهم فعرفتها. You see, القلوب برؤية فسكنوا إليها واستلذوا. Because of that, they feel the taste of the sweetness of it. That's what it is. And the following, just jumping, بأنه نفخ من روح الأزل في أرواحهم روح المعارف فصارت أرواحهم مؤيدة بروح منه. That's what it is. He blew in them a spirit in them, and by which they are ma'arif, knowledge. And this is what, you know.
Yang printed tadi on the qalb.
On the qalb.
Yeah.
Allah Ta'ala wrote on their qalb.
Print or wrote.
Wrote is meaning print.
Okay.
Ya, itu dikatakan tari'ah. You see, this referring to the mu'minin. It's a long verse. لا تجد قوما يؤمنون بالله يوم الآخر يودون من حاد الله. Panjang, so I don't want to go into that. But the point is, I want to point to you that this whole idea that, you know, that God places something, as I've been saying, that, you know, asrar ma'ana latifa is deposited in the man's qalb at every moment, but we just don't realize it. That's why I was saying sometimes we read something, it's in the background, but it didn't jump to your consciousness. Only sometime later when you read, hey, why? I remember I've been saying here many times, the question that really stuck in my head, Rahman in his class, he says, how do you answer questions that you have not heard of before? If we are mechanical, we must rely on tape recorders, meaning do our minds and intellect work like tape recorders, only memorize things, but how we join meanings.
Yeah.
That is metaphysical works. That's something that, this is what Prof. al-Attas was saying, thinking is the motion of the soul from meaning to meaning. That's metaphysical activity. So, but this part that we are missing in this to discuss about this. And this is why this Prof. al-Attas begins on intuition of existence as it is the fundamental basis of an Islamic metaphysics. Islamic metaphysics, not worldview. The basis of Islamic metaphysics, we must understand what actually happened, you know. But we don't realize. We are unmindful of it. you know. That's why that verse was saying, you know, an taqulu yawmal qiyamati aina kunna an hadha ghafilin. And we're completely negligent of this because it has never been taught. The days of Rusbiyan Bakr Shirazi, the days Ghazali, all the way down. I remember that list, the list that I give. They were cognizant of this fact. This is what Prof. al-Attas is writing this again. But nobody teaches this. And if you were to teach this, it sounds so weird. This is not, you know, as I was saying, when I came back in 1991, I've never heard somebody talks about religion, agama Islam, with alastu bi rabbikum. Nobody talks about that. But it's a verse in the Quran, so fundamental, you know. And this is why Junaid was saying, and where's that book? I think this is the book that we will go on. This is what Prof. al-Attas was saying in that book, that the experience of the intuition of existence is very fundamental to talk about discretity and essence. Otherwise, it makes no sense, because intuition is a very fundamental aspect in our belief. Okay, let's go on. He says, in our epistemology, for those of you who have been following Professor Pasalan's talk, there's a discussion about ontology. Ontology is quiddity and essence. And then the book following this one, which is degrees of existence. So epistemology is how we know things. And that is this. Intuition of existence is epistemology. Because that is our first experience of it, you know. But we forgot that that is a very fundamental understanding of what it is, intuition. It takes a long time for people to really grasp this idea, really, you know, because we think intuition is something like, well, it is mentioned here. The first line, Dato Seri.
Yeah.
Epistemology, we affirm the possibility of knowledge. Yani, it is possible, we arrive at knowledge. But what is the meaning of knowledge? Well, you must then go back to the definition of Professor al-Attas, the arrival of meaning in the soul. If it arrives from in the soul, where does it come from? That's what it is that I just read from Rusbihani Bakr Shirazi. Kataballahu fi qulubihim iman. And then, wa ayyadahum bi ruhim minhu. So he revealed unto himself, so wastaladhu. Ada nikmat ilmu ni. This is why, you know, knowledge is somehow sweet in and of itself. You know, baca buku 3-4 jam, lupa minum, tapi, best. For those, yeah. For some reason, the soul, this is why Ghazali says, you know, knowledge is the food for the soul, you know. So, and knowledge itself is what is called latifatul ruhaniyah. It's a spiritual subtlety. it feeds the soul, it enriches the soul. This is what is the meaning, what the intussusception, that's what it is. The meaning comes and make the soul alive, animated, strong, becoming rejuvenated, really. No matter how you're hungry, you're tired, but once you arrive at the meaning of something, you just jump with joy, seriously. So we establish the possibility of knowledge, because unlike what happens in present day discussion, is this the knowledge that I have, is the knowledge of the real thing in the world? No. The logical positivist was discussing whether what we know is real or not, between realism and idealism, positivism and whatever, ism there is. That's what Professor Attas mentioned, the book, the chapter prior to this, Nature of Man, Psychology of the Human Soul, and also Knowledge. What is the title on that book on knowledge? It's on the chapter to see. First, the reality of things, haqa'iq, reality of things, the haqiqat of things, which we don't use the word now. We use the word reality, but really the term is haqiqat. Then there's reason, there's true reports, there's authority, there's intuition as sources and methods of knowledge. Intuition, this is why, most, for example, modern physics, chemistry, whatever occurs in their mind is actually intuition. But they deny it. They say it's based on, no, but somehow registered in their mind. It's actually, it is intuition. And this is what we talked about, intuition. Then you might ask the question, so the non-Muslim have intuition too? Yes. Allah Ta'ala gives knowledge to whomever He pleases. He's not a Muslim, a God of the Muslims alone. And if you ask me, how, why? Because they believe in ilm. Ilm is a sifat of Allah Ta'ala. And this is why we must understand the idea of rububiyyah and ilahiyah. They may believe in that part, but they may not believe in ilah, the performance of ubudiyah, not for them. But they really become servant of knowledge. That's one aspect of it. But knowledge used for immoral purposes, that's another matter. So, with regard to the problems connected with the nature of existence, that's what it is now. We want to go into the nature of existence, because what is it that we understand of things existing? Well, he was saying, Professor al-Attas, we all understand the idea that everything exists. So that exists. Betul tak? This cup exists, this phone exists, I exist, Zainiy version 2, Zainiy version 1, whatever, exists. So you have a thing exists. This is called something we call reality because it exists, and this exists we call concept, because we somehow think it's a different word. Okay, this is what it's trying to say. This single general abstract concept, all existences become multiple because of the rational division. We make portions in the mind. You exist, he exists, he exists, but somehow it's not clear. How is it that you exist? What portion of it? So we do make the existence of this cup is different. So that's why we classify them into animate things, inanimate things, but they exist. Otherwise, you cannot talk about it. It doesn't register. So now, in addition to this being existence, we can make differentiation. This is a phone. This is a cup. So there is a difference between this called individual. Betul tak? Right? Why are they not the same? This Zainiy and this Zainiy, they're not the same. So there's something that separates them. Now these are called particulars. These are things that are called particulars. So there are something that make things separate and different. And there is something called the essence of something. Like we look at a man, there's an essence of man. Like you look at a cat. Every cat has some catness about it. So there's an essence of cat. There's so many soups in the world. Mushroom soup, minestrone soup, soup tulang. But there is certain essence of soup. It has to be soupy. It's different from gravy. They're not the same. The idea of thickness. So there are some sifa. So that's called, in the discussion later on, if you read this book, there's something called fasl, the specific differentiae that makes something different. So in addition to existence understood in the sense above, that we all exist, based upon that is based on true reports, intuition, and also the Holy Quran and tradition, as well as reason and experience, there is another entity corresponding to the purely conceptual notion of existence that is not mental but real. And this is the part which is Islamic metaphysics wants to drum, and it's very difficult. This is why when Prof. al-Attas wanted to make me understand this thing, he said, just think of it as energy. That's also, we all believe in energy, but we have never seen energy. We see light, this lamp. Yeah, it's a form of energy. The air conditioning is a manifestation of energy because you use energy to blow in cold air. So it takes energy for the air conditioning to work to blow in cold air. So then physics says there's electromagnetic forces, energy. Then there's potential energy, there's kinetic energy. It's energy, but you never see, in fact, you don't see kinetic energy. You only see it when a car crashes. Then you say that's because of the force, the momentum, because of the kinetic energy. But you don't see energy falling down, let us see. You just say that ball is falling down. So the same thing with existence. We all admit there's energy. Same thing Prof. al-Attas must say. There is a reality of existence in so much as there is a reality of energy, there's reality of existence. And this is the part that is now missing from our understanding. It's very difficult for us to arrive to that conclusion because it's not so. It's not something immediate, because you see this, you see color, and this is why it is something that has to do with the mind. It has something to do with the mind. So Prof. al-Attas was saying, and if you read this work like this is called primary intelligible. You can see it, you dapat terus. That's primary. The secondary part is behind it. Like Zainiy Ujang is a man. Zainiy Ujang, primary intelligible. Is a man too, secondary intelligible. Because you don't see man. Meaning, when you go to a cave and there's an ancient painting on the cave, you immediately would say, this must be done by man. You don't need to see a man, because this is so characteristic of human being, right? They like to draw things. You don't say, I think a snake that has been hibernating in this cave must have drawn on the wall of this cave. It must be Neolithic. It doesn't make sense. Even now they say, you can train elephant to paint, but you don't make the conclusion that elephant paints in the ancient caves, because it's the habit of man. This is what Prof. al-Attas is saying also about the definition of man. So in the same way, when you look at things, there are some things in the manifestation of these things will somehow point to the reality of the thing. So man, you can see that there are certain habits or effects of man that you can somehow point to the mahiyah, the very essence of man, the quiddity of it. Because when you see the painting on the wall, this is the work of man. You don't say Neanderthal man, you just say man first, you see. Unless the evidence will point to you, you dig around the cave, you found some bones, you make some carbon dating, then, lo and behold, it is, Kuala Brang man, Kenyir Dam man, Penang woman or whatever. That's how we arrive at it. So this is trying to get to the idea, Dato, see, through intuition that you come to the reality of existence.
So intuition in this case is the understanding the knowledge related to it.
Close, like Joe was saying the last time. Is it yaqata? After the arrival of meaning, so then you suddenly understand. That is you wake up. You wake up. the intuition of existence, for example, when somebody arrives at something that has not been understood before. I give an example in the physics sense and the biological sense, like Watson and Crick arrived at the double
helix.
Double helix. It was in a dream, you know. But he worked at it, trying to show it in the physical world, because the dream is belonging in another realm. So the dream, this is why I told you, you know, dreams are true and real. They can point to what happened to you, so it's the same thing. You know, this is why in Islamic understanding, true dreams are sources of true knowledge. And this is why we say here, Prof. Based on the authority. Because people who are gifted with certain knowledge, they are authority. And we must sit and listen to them to actually like fish from them, out of them knowledge, you know, because, you know, those days they don't have what we have today. Now everything is written down and things like that. But in those days, authorities, like, I just give you an example. Some people would like to study under traditional shuyukh. Traditional shuyukh, they don't have blackboards and chalk. You just sit with them, have tea, and listen to them. And if they want to, at their pleasure, want to read a book with you, they read. And that's called talaqi. But sometimes you go with them for ages, meaning for an extended period of time, they won't do anything. But you're learning something, because that is the process of adab, isn't it? Yeah. When you are ready, then you are able to understand certain things. Like, for example, why I've been not wanting to discuss about these chapters for the many, right? Because we have not come to the proper background. Now we have gone through many years of Prof. al-Attas's book. Somehow this is now the right time. So somehow to just scratch the surface, no? Not to get into the very detail of it. So this is why the understanding of ontology, which Professor Salam stresses a lot, is very important. And the idea of ontology here is the nature of existence. Hakikat wujud. Because ru'yatul Islam lil wujud. It's very important. So the other entity is the reality of existence, which produces in the mind the notion of existence as pure concepts, as well as the notion of things and the acuity to which portions of existence and conceptual entity are correspondingly attributed. So it's the reverse. Instead of saying this exists, we say exists in this form. The reality of it is that existence come to be in this form. Now, why is it? Because one of the many names of Sifa Allah Ta'ala is wujud. And this is why that wujud, we the Muslim in the field of Islamic metaphysics regard existence as something living, something active, something that is conscious. It has knowledge. Then you might ask, hey, how is this possible? Well, it's one and the same in the reality of God. They are not separate. That's why Prophet al-Attas was explaining the asma and sifa Allah Ta'ala. They're not God in and of himself, and neither are they separated from God. Dia macam ni lah. Zaini Ujang penyayang, pembaca buku. Can you separate the two from him? You put his penyayang over there, you put his pembaca buku over there. You cannot do that. You know, he walks in a room, you just, dah datang dah pembaca buku. You don't do that. You say, Dato si Zaini Ujang dah sampai. Isn't it? That's what it is. But you see the nature of his activities when he start doing things. When he start to talk about something, then you can see, this guy is knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable. So that knowledgeable aspect refers to his something called the essence in him. Because he has something which distinguishes himself from others. Now that is something that you can see as alive. So this is why when we see this color, for example, this is porcelain blue, you can tell whether this is Chinese or Iznik tile from the difference of the shade. If you're an expert in ceramics, you know. So, but this is what Professor al-Attas is trying to say. There is a reality of existence. This is no longer the concern of any sciences today.
Well, what's reality in Arabic?
Reality, then we have a problem here. The basic word is haqiqah.
Hakika.
But there's
reality of apa?
Haqiqah.
Hakika.
Yeah. There's another word in Arabic, it's called waqi'ah. Okay? Tapi waqi'ah is actually what is happening here now. And because, for example, dalam Quran, idza waqa'atil waqi'ah, that talks about yaumul qiyamah, which is real, true and real. It's only one event. It's only one event, but it's real. Now, the time period, Allahu A'lam, I don't know the time period. That's why we cannot, something very interesting in this discussion about existence in Islam, about the nature of time. Because, and this is something very quite fascinating about the Quran. So when it says, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ, the word waqi'ah there, with the ta marbuta, it refers to only one event, one unique event, you know. The extension of the time we don't know. And the funny thing is that you can use that verse to refer to the masdar. Very funny in Arabic, but it's real, you know. Waqa'a. You know, it doesn't say anything else, you know. إِذَا جَاءَ الْوَاقِعَةِ. No, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. The word waqa'a is also the verb, but it's also the name of the event.
So it's in past tense.
It's in the past tense, yeah. Although it's mentioned in the past tense, it's yet to happen in the future. To show that it will happen. It will definitely happen, you see. And this is the nature of the Arabic language. Whatever that is written in the past, but referring something in the future, it means it will certainly happen. Macam tadi, kataballah fi qulubihim, you know. Meaning, it has written, but what about budak-budak yang belum lahir? No, it will. See? So this is the metaphysics of understanding that we must derive from the Quran, as you see. But it's not taught now, unfortunately, you know. So that is an aspect of God. That's aspect dalam bahasa Arab is wajah. Wajah. Wajh. That's why the Quran says, كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجهه ذو الجلال والإكرام. ويبقى. The word ويبقى is everlasting. Wajhahu dhul jalali wal ikram. The aspect of God that will remain. So wajah. So it's not very strange to refer to the word wajhahu. It doesn't mean that Allah Ta'ala has a face, but it means an aspect, a sifa Allah Ta'ala. The sifa of it that will remain. So this is called wujud. That's why wujud Allah Ta'ala is everlasting. So this is what it is, and we cannot deny this. This is why it says, we have given a gist of this already, identifying this reality of existence, which is also the absolute existence with the aspect of God referred to the Holy Quran as that which encompasses everything in the pervasive sort of way which remains after the perishing of everything created. Kullu man alayha fan wa yabqa wajhahu dhul jalali wal ikram. This they don't teach. I personally must admit, I understand these things only after listening to Professor al-Attas, because of many aspects of the verses of the Quran wasn't really clear to me, because it has been, well, we don't grow up in this kind of discussion nowadays. The Quran is more like a reading kind of thing for barakah, and if you read for tafsir, it's more hukum oriented, muamalat oriented. But we have forgotten this is what Professor al-Attas was saying, fardu ain. This is part of fardu ain, really. Fardu ain is min al-mahdi ila al-lahdi. You don't need to study about Islamic banking. Not every one of us, betul tak? We are not, it's fardu kifayah, but it's not fardu ain. But for this, it's very important. That's why we must understand, some people might find it, and they will not be very pleased with us saying, we must study a little bit about philosophy, we must study a little bit about kalam and tasawwuf, because these are the things, these are the questions that really, they're in the back of our minds even as we grow older, because we cannot make sense of it. And this is why we must constantly discuss about these things.
Yeah.
Amazing, our ulama in the past, they were talking about these things. Shukri, our benefactor of this streaming, not here today. He mentioned in his video about a poem we mentioned about Duru Mandum. Yeah. Duru Mandum was the time of Sultan Mansur Shah. And it was in the 15th century, 1400s. And it was written by Sheikh that was in Makkah. So in Makkah they were discussing about these things, And earlier than that, as I was saying, it's a continuous metaphysical view of the world, the structure of the world. But we have not been discussing this thing properly. So much so that it's just like, for many of us, I know these two and the other chapter, Degrees of Existence, is difficult. It's like reading, Physics 101. I know. I grew up with Frank Tipler. It's very difficult when you're not used to the formulas and the discussion about it. But these are very basic ideas that Ghazali and others, they were discussing about these things. It's the back of their mind. So, unity in essence. So our notion of a thing, and when we perceive something, in case of man, is that this is called concrete existence. Concrete existence, the word Professor al-Attas used here is mawjud. But another word in Arabic is wujud aini. Okay? Wujud aini, because it has the word ain means individual. So I translated it as wujud aini also. It's a concrete existence, meaning this is concrete, because the word English, concrete meaning real, hard, There's a physical thing out there. So that physical thing that exists is called in Arabic mawjud. The interesting thing about Arabic, Dato Sri, the word mawjud means wujud has been placed in that thing. That's what it means, because the meme is the ism makan. It's a name of a place. So when you put, in Arabic, you put a verb with a meme before it, it becomes a place. Or something, the action is done to it. So macam apa? Kataba, writing. Maktab is an office where writing is done in it. So if you put something else like maktaba, it suddenly becomes a library. See? So mawjud is like that. So existence has been put in you. That's the reality of existence has been put in you. It's not like previously in the earlier discussion that you have man and you think that you exist. Remember? Right? Zainiy exists.
Mawjud ni mesti hidup, must be alive.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like this is mawjud. It's not alive. But technically speaking, it's active and dynamic. Behind the scene.
Can we say that this concrete mean is a reality that is not real? Can we say that this concrete reality that we see with our empirical is a reality that is not real?
Good question. No, in Islamic metaphysics, they are real. They have degrees of existence. They have degrees of existence.
Yeah.
And an example of that, there's a verse in the Quran. It says, at the end of the verse, it says, "Lau kuntu turaba." I mean, for the disbelievers, on the Day of Judgment, they were so regretful that they wish they were specks of dust. Ya laitani. How I wish I was put in existence as just bits of dust. Ya laitani kuntu turaba. And the verse in the Arabic is so amazing because the word kana means kaun, existence being put. Yeah. Kuntu turaba. If I were to exist. But of course, in Arabic language, properly, it's if I were a dust. But what it means is that if I were put in a dimension of time and space as dust, because the word kana is actually what it means. It's time and space. This is why it's called kaun. This whole thing is called kaun, from kana. So no, they're not real. They're real. This is why everything that we do is going to be accounted as our deeds, to be measured on the Day of Judgment. Yeah. So we cannot do harm to animals. We cannot put things in the wrong places. You know, we must clean things. This is where every bit of action that we do with the world, we are, yani, imara. You know, we're supposed to make the world something positive. You know, the word in Malay memakmurkan dunia. That's what it means. We must, by virtue of our virtues, and fadilah, we must make the world a more livable place. That's why, properly speaking, if we are living by the virtues of Islam, that's what our streets should be cleaner than Japan.
Yeah, should be.
You know, because they look from the understanding it has to be clean, and as you said, that's what continuously clean.
Yeah.
And that's continuity, as I said. You know, if you look at this, no, it's actually active. But we don't have that in mind. It has not been ingrained in our amal that cleanliness is part of that. It's just what dalam Islam it says, an-nadhafatu minal iman. Cleanliness is a part of your iman. So, la imanan liman la nadhafata lah.
Yeah.
There is no iman to a person who has no cleanliness to him. Sepatutnya kita turn the hadis.
Terbalikkan hadis.
Terbalikkan. Dan baru shocking sikit. So this is what it is. This is why it's very important for us to understand this. There are degrees of existence, but the least of it, still we cannot forget our duty as a Khalifa fil ard, that we must act to it, with it, accordingly, with justice. For example, as I said, cleanliness. Rubbish must be put in the right place and must be disposed of in a way that does not harm our environment. That somehow does not built in our system. Macam, we're sorry to say these things. When we moved to Putrajaya, we say, oh, very good. You know, they cut the grass regularly, but what they did was the plastic thing that they use for the mower, they just threw it away.
Yeah. So the job is only to cut.
To cut.
So,
but not to clean.
Not to clean.
Because the idea of cleanliness is not there, part of the... So that's a good question, because this is what is problem with because we thought that other things of being in the lower rank of classification of being has no repercussions as far as our amal is concerned. Not. Wrong, because that's where our Khalifatullah fil ard kicks in. But unfortunately, we have not been taught this. And this is what Prof. al-Attas is trying to say. The basic structure of Islamic worldview, we must really understand. And that's why I was saying to Prof. al-Attas, finishing reading it when he was writing the draft, said, Prof. al-Attas, I only wish Muslim scientists understand what you're writing here. You know? Because not many of them can understand. It's not easy. Because we have been thinking in a way that, not only we've been thinking, we have been fashioned to think in the way that physics work like this, mathematics work like this. They say mathematics is the language of science. The Quran is not a language of science.
So mathematics is not metaphysical.
It is metaphysical.
Sebab tak ada tunjuk apa-apa pun kan.
It doesn't.
Kalau kita belajar biology, you have animal.
Yeah, you have the animal.
Mathematics is metaphysics, I think. It's not physics.
We have a problem with Dr. Ikhwan. Because he would not think it's metaphysical. It's a language that describes reality for them. Yeah.
Can we say that mathematics is another language of God to understand God?
Another language to understand God? Yes, because you are describing of what is happening in the physical world. You arrive at an understanding of it, because it is said in the verse in the Quran, Sanurihim ayatina fil afaq wa fi anfusihim. We shall make them see our verses. You know, ayatina, our verses, fi anfusihim, fil afaq, in the farthest horizon. And how do you see these verses? You write it down as equations. Because tidak, you won't see it.
Simplification.
Yeah, you see it as orbiting from Kepler's formula of the orbit. You know, you see forces attracting one another, Newton or whatever. You know,
and depends on your assumption, depends on your factors you want to put in. Prof. Zainiy, this is very important. This year, I'm going to learn mathematics. So kalau you tengok saya punya posting kadang I think we should learn mathematics at the end of our life rather than at the early part of our life. early part of life tu 1+1 tu you calculate your money and then stop, and then after you finish your career and then you learn mathematics, because mathematics is about a symphony of things. It's about patterns. It's about metaphysics.
We can ask Ikhwan
Yeah.
to comment a bit. No, please.
That means I made a mistake because I started with mathematics and I moved away from mathematics.
No, but what is your comment on mathematics so far? Do you have understanding something? Yeah, please comment a bit.
The way I was trained in mathematics is that there are two sides of it. There's mathematics they call it applied mathematics, where you study mathematics for the sake of explaining physical processes or explaining biological processes or economic processes for that matter. But there's also pure mathematics. Pure mathematics is just mathematics for mathematics' sake. So sometimes people ask, what is the object of this pure mathematics? What is it that you are studying? And mathematicians, they find it very hard to explain that because apparently there's no object. But if the more philosophically inclined, the easy answer is that, okay, it's a kind of Platonic object. So Plato said that there exists this realm where things are perfect. But that's metaphysics, right? But then the norms of I think the late 19th and 20th century and even today is that they don't acknowledge this Platonic realm. So mathematicians, they are forced to say that mathematics is just about structure, whatever structure the logical structure that you can build in your mind and express it in a formal, symbolic sense, and then that's mathematics. So it becomes a formal science. It's just a formality. And some would say whatever that is computable, so that can be turned into algorithms that can be calculated through mathematical machines like computers. It become AI and so on.
Yeah. This is very interesting, Prof. Zainiy. When I did my PhD, I used a lot of design of experiment. It's a statistical method, and I took 2 semesters statistics. I failed. The only subject I failed at undergraduate level was statistics. So I had to resit the exams and whatnot. But for my PhD, I have to take statistics, because otherwise I have to do 1,200 experiments to complete my PhD. So if you can finish 2 experiments a day, so you have many days to do, 600 days to do experiment. That's including weekends. So I try to simplify how to make it done. So I took statistics, and this professor, he keep on talking about factorial design, blah, blah, blah. I asked him, can you give some example? And he said, it's difficult for me to give an example. I'm a pure statistician. I just can't talk about it. And then I give him my situation, my conditions. Oh, that is factorial design. 4 to n to the power minus 1. And I read that portion, 4 to the power minus 1, factorial design. And I found everything. So I learned statistics instead of statistics and then going to factorial design. Instead, I study factorial design and goes back to statistics. So macam sekarang lah, you don't have to learn mathematics at the early part of your life. And then throughout, my life is very chaotic. So for example, there is an equation to explain your situation. Something like that. So I think this is metaphysical because it's not yet happened. It just bagi beberapa condition. This is a situation. There are 1,000 situations. So you just pick up this is your roots. If you write your autobiography, you can read in factorial design. Ada 10 orang yang mempengaruhi saya dalam hidup ni. And so it's very difficult to 10 to the power of 10. Kan? 10 dengan 10 watak yang berbeza. Lepas tu 10 to the power n minus 1. Lagi senang. Jadi kita faktor yang sikit untuk kita jelaskan your situation in statistical method situation. Supaya macam ni, sebab tu Prof Naquib mention about whatness. So,
Yeah.
belajar matematik untuk apa?
Yeah. So you mentioned tadi about Platonic forms. Yeah. They have the right idea about forms, but jumping ahead, look at the conclusion at the end of this, which we slowly because I cannot go through with you line by line, and it will take a long time, isn't it? But look at the end to sum up the realities, haqiqah, haqa'iq, are forms of the divine names and attributes. See? They are forms of divine names, considered in their aspect of differences. Meaning, realities, we are basically a manifestation of forms of His names and attributes. Like you have beauty, handsomeness. That's Jamal. So an aspect of Allah Ta'ala is Jamal. The beauty of Allah Ta'ala that He has put in you is not taken from Him in such a way that His beauty is lost ataupun deficient. And this is what Rani says in his book Halul Dhil, the one that we talked about the last time. So the same thing like human being nowadays. We try to make very intelligent robots, and we write AI. AI in computers does not make ours intelligence any less. That is something, because that the nature of knowledge that we have gotten from Allah Ta'ala is the same. It does not make our knowledge any lesser by putting it in the computer. In fact, just like when we teach knowledge, it does not make any knowledge lesser from the teacher. It makes it greater and more and more and more. That's why they say the best way to learn is to teach. Isn't it? This is what it is. So they might want to negate Platonic form, but they cannot deny it. So in our Islamic reality, the reality of metaphysics, so that form is real. They have their own. This is called Alamul Mithal. This is what Ghazali, Ibn Arabi wrote his book. You know, the idea of Alamul Mithal in Ibn Arabi, and the idea of creative imagination. This is what it is. But people, it's quite too advanced now. I mean, so it means that forms is a mithal. It's a similitude. It's in the reference of something. But what we are seeing here, for example, beauty is in the concrete form. But the real beauty, we don't have the notion of beauty in its original form from Allah Ta'ala. That belongs to Him. Just like, for example, existence. We see this cup exists, but the real existence, we don't see it. But we do not deny the reality of it. Just like energy. We can only see, bright light, yellowish light. They call it cool light, isn't it? Warm light. But behind it is energy. So forms of energy. These are different forms of energy. So the realities are forms of the divine names and attributes considered in their aspect of difference, because they are different from one the other. As such, they are essences that are established permanently as archetypes in the interior condition of being. Interior condition of being, well, that's another. I want to go there in the next meeting, inshallah, which we has to do with the diagram. But what I want to talk about now is, because I don't want to go into greater detail so much. There are this diagram. This is very important to understand. We talked about man exists, Zainiy exists, kan? But there are two different things, because there are many multitude of men in the world now, and existence is one. So what makes Zainiy an individual? Because of this diagram. You have man, the concept of man that we derive in our mind, and then we have a concept of existence, and they overlap. That in the middle, Professor al-Attas says, that is what makes it unique. It becomes tashakhus, individual. So when you have man, animal, and rationality, he used that word here, and man, You have animal rationality. When they overlap, inside it is man. So man is not animal. Man is not rational alone. The same thing with man, spirit, and body. Man is not spirit alone. Man is not body alone. If he's spirit, he's dead. If it's body alone, he's dead. Betul tak? So when you have both overlap, that's man. But the question is, what brings it about to exist? That's what it is. It cannot exist as body without something behind it. It cannot exist as spirit without something bringing it life. We call that the nature and reality of existence. But it's somehow projected to our mind as these separate things, portions, you know. Itu yang Prof al-Attas is trying to say here. So, on that page, to this refers the interpretation of Fakhruddin Ar-Razi when he said that primary knowledge, ilmu daruri, boom, you know, it comes directly to us by necessity. So, when you see smoke, fire. Who teach you? Who taught you? No. When you see smoke, you always think there's a problem, you know, but it's a danger to run away. Like, you know, when a sheep sees wolf, you know, run away. So, these are
only two, dia tak boleh tiga overlap.
Boleh.
Yeah?
We'll see it later in a bigger, this one here.
Okay, yeah.
That is just a slow, this is two-dimensional first. Yeah. So, this is the idea of existence, because the primacy of existence, Dato is trying to explain how is it that you get something. So, as I said earlier, you have catness, okay? Then exists. There's something called an idea of catness. So, there must be some essence of cat in there. The essence is the word in Arabic, that. Okay? But what is it yang Professor was asking, what is Mahia last time? What's her name? Haryati? Yeah. So, this is what she was asking. What is Mahia? Well, the word is quiddity in English. The word quiddity, according to Prof al-Attas, is derived from the Arabic. And the word Arabic is Mahia. And it comes from the hadith of the Prophet who says, Arinal Ashya kama hiya. That's Prof al-Attas' interpretation. And according to Goikhan, he did say that, you know, the word quiddity, because this is part of philosophy, how philosophy arrived in the West, it's through the Greek, through the Muslims, sorry. From the Greek to the Arabic. So the discussion on existence is basically Aristotelian, but it was refined by Ibn Sina. And this is why when people, but this is very detailed, minute kind of point, but you can see this in the footnote. So, so the reality of existence, is you see a cat. So there must be an idea of catness. For example, there's no cat here. I can talk about a cat, but somehow it registers in your mind now, yeah, there is a cat that we are talking about.
Cat.
Yeah, you understand what a cat is, because in your mind there is an idea of what a cat is compared to a dog. But I call to your mind, cat. And the word cat somehow exists. If the cat never existed, well, what's the point of I'm talking to you? You never understand it because you don't know what it is. You know, just like in the early 90s, nobody understand what semiconductor is. You know, nowadays everybody talks about semiconductor. They make chips for computers and things like that. So I remember that to see when I was in Wisconsin, Madison, I was working in a company. They were among the earlier ones that was making the silicon wafering. When I was telling another Malaysian, I'm working with a company that's doing this. I have no clue what you are talking about. Because silicon wafering, wafer is normally chocolate. Chocolate wafers, you know, like Kit Kat. But silicon become wafers and doing computers. Well, in the 90s, computer is so early. In the 80s, 1980s, computer would just start to make its debut. So Haji Kamaluddin would know very well about these things. In fact, I asked the person, why don't you write something that because he used to work for a newspaper. I said, write something that there's a Malaysian who knows about this thing, about making silicon wafering. I think if I were to go into that, I might be a rich person by now. But no, because he doesn't understand it. So it's very difficult to explain the process. But nowadays, some people are just working in the back of the lab. So this catness, there must be at the back of our mind exists. If there is no existence implied, no point talking about it, No point, really. It's just like, that's why when they want to work, they want a new discovery. They always describe it. Yeah. They give you a name, you will not have any idea what it is. You must start with the description. That is why even Allah Ta'ala has names and sifah. Sifah are attributes, so to speak, descriptions. So that's why when we talk about catness, well, it's the essence. There is an essence of catness in an animal. Then you must say how different it is from a dog, how different it is from a giraffe. So you go by either negation or affirmation. It has 4 legs. Oh, just like a dog. It runs, but it's not like a man. So nafi wal ithbat, and this is the process of the intellection, the intelligential capacity of making distinction, discrimination, judgment, and forgot one more thing. There are 4 aspects of it. So this is what happens. What happens to us is that we don't see existence. We see effects of existence. And we get an idea of, because of the summation of the attributes, we make a name to it. That is why the only vocation of man, because I don't know if you want to fault Nabi Adam for it, because Allah Ta'ala says, فَأَلْهَمْ وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. The only creature in the creation of man, in the creation of this world, that has been gifted with this one unique capacity to name things. We even name our dog. Sometimes people name their car. It's amazing, Unbelievable. And you make the dog listen to the name, or the cat, Sayang lah, bunting lah, apa lah. Because the name, by virtue of the characteristics, the attribute. And this is the thing, the nature of science is because of that. And this is what I've read earlier from Ruzvihani Bakr Shirazi. The name, he gives us the ability to do that.
What about something imaginary, like unicorn or dragon?
Okay, that's in here. The nature of an imaginary, this is truly imaginary creation of man, like the unicorn, okay, or anything imaginary, like steampunk. It's imaginary in the sense that it's a false creation of the mind. It's imaginary because of that, because it has no corresponding reality. But it is based on reality. It's the shape of a horse. And then there's a horn. The horn is in the shape of a, what is a triangle in 3... A cone, thank you. So you have a cone that is made of a certain material that's stuck on the head. It's not stuck at the back. And that's not unicorn, So it is based on something real that they have seen. Human being can make that imaginary, I don't want to say creation, but it's the work of the mind. So this is what Prof. Attas was saying, and what we have discussed last time. The faculty that works in creating something like that is the wahmiyah. Because when we saw the horse, we recollect the shape of the horse. And that's hafidha dhakira. Then we have something that we want to create that thinks, and we can think the horse can fly. And then we saw the bird can fly, so we put wings, because we think the wings make things fly. Yeah? And until now, it's the wings that make things fly. A chunk of metal can fly because of 2 wings, thanks to physics. So that's what Professor Attas was saying. Wahmiyah, and then if you imbued it properly with the proper khayal, mutakhayila, which is super scientific, it brings about technology. But if you use it for something which is more sensitive, it will bring about arts, like unicorn. It can be very creative, you know. You don't have to believe in it. You don't say the Prophet's burak is like a unicorn. That would be wrong. Betul tak? Yeah. So that's why, you know, if we can slowly appreciate this thing, Dato, we can slowly rearrange our priority of STEM and arts, you know, because the world, the mind, yani, needs both to function. And that is why when you ask someone, anyone, you ask Dr. Imran, he's a fiber person. Once physics gets too boring, what do? You listen to music. Yeah, you still read novels. Yeah. You need that break. But it's not the break, actually. It is really the demand of the soul. Because you need both aspects. Because we are not entirely, here Professor Attas mentioned, we are not entirely jism. We are not entirely maddi, material. We have what people call the softer side. The spirit, no, it's not the softer side. The spirit is actually the animating part of this jism, of this maddi part of our being, you know. Although we don't see it, but it's very powerful indeed. Without the spirit, we're all dead. And the body disintegrate. The spirit that holds us together, not the organic carbon that holds us together. Yeah. It's the spirit that holds us together. So where does the spirit comes from? Well, that's what we read just now. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. You know, we blew into him our spirit, and that's what it is. This spirit, what is the spirit? Well, because it's mentioned there in the tradition of the metaphysics of the Sufis, and in my book Haludhil, there's a term that is being used by Sufis. We call it Nafas ar-Rahman, the breath of the merciful. The breath of the merciful. Not Nafsur Rahman, that's not the thing. It's exactly the term, Nafasur Rahman, the breath of the merciful. The breath of the merciful is actually the gifting of existence. This is why existence is very prime, meaning in one of the main attributes of Sifat Allah Ta'ala. You know, he goes, Allah wujud. Know that? And that's why here Professor al-Attas was saying, wujud is identified with Allah because of that. Because God is ultimate, isn't it? So the very first thing that must be of his ultimate kemutlakan dia, but although he's not defined by mutlak, otherwise he's defined by something, is that wujud belongs to him. He has wujud. Not he has wujud because of that he exists. No. He creates, in a sense. Wujud is part of him. You know, like Allah wujud, Allah alim, you know, baqa. These are the sifat Allah Ta'ala, isn't it? So, the idea is Allah wujud qidam. His existence is eternal. And then baqa, you know, everlasting. Qiyamu bi nafsihi. This is for this discussion, let us see. But nowadays people don't encourage you to learn this, isn't it? But this is the part that we must learn. This, that's what this is all about here. So, just a little bit about, because I have mentioned to you about this and overlapping. This is the idea if you want to understand what is mentioned in page about jisim and madda. See? So similar, if circle 1 represents substratum madda, maddi, matter, circle 2 represents substantial form, surah, then 3 would present the jisim, the substance, okay? Then again, related to man, you can read this, but what I'm trying to say is that you have catness, and you have the form of the cat. Catness is the idea. Then you have a form. Then you have cat in front of you. But that catness can have different colors, different shapes, in the sense that big, small, you know, short legs or whatever, short. like I think some of you may have seen cats with no tails. That's very strange, isn't it? But some cat has very long tail. Yeah, but still you call it a cat. You don't call it OKU cat. You never call a cat handicapped cat, except when he has a problem with the legs, you know. A cat who's blind, you don't call it an OKU cat. It's just a blind cat. So this is what the Professor al-Attas is trying to say. What this chapter is trying to discuss, that's what is the way the minds work. And this is why I say educators must somehow look at this again. Because we don't look at how the mind works in order to teach children properly. Even to teach us, to learn to analyze things. So once we understand how this works, maybe then we can understand the level of difficulty that we want to impart upon students. So this then goes to the discussion of what makes a thing what it is. Ma bihi syai'un huwa huwa. What makes a thing it is, you know. So interesting, Prof. al-Attas was saying kat sini, the first huwa refers to existence. The second huwa, when you read this, refers to the quiddity. Okay, sorry, I'm jumping. Quiddity, because Dato was asking tadi kan, and Professor Haryati was asking, Mahia is what it is, as I was saying, it is the Arabic for Mahia from Arabic, from the hadith of the Prophet, Arinal Ashya Kamahia. Show us things as they really are. That's the hadith of the Prophet. Dalam bahasa Melayu, apa benda itu? Okay? Keapaan, you know? Keapa ituan.
Whatness lah.
The whatness. Yeah, the whatness. So kadang-kadang when we are presented with something that we do not know what it is, we always say apa benda ni? Apa benda ni? So that benda tu the shyness of thing. The shy.
So benda tu akan disoriented one. Say we have four rounds, four circle. So assuming one of the circle distorted or one of the circle missing, so maknanya tak lengkap lah.
No, yeah, it will not be complete.
Kalau manusia ada, nyawa tak ada.
No. You have to give it something else. So kalau you have only the body, then you call it jasad. You don't even call it badan, because there's no ruh to it. Badan is only when the ruh is in it, the spirit is in it. Dipanggil dia jasad. Ataupun when it is completely separated, you call it by its name. Kaki, kepala, mata, telinga, tangan. In fact, kalau pecah ni pun you call it dada, itu je. But you cannot call it a whole body even. It's amazing. You have to have ini. That's why in a discussion philosophy they call it juzuk dengan kulli. So if you have particulars, it does not lead you to the knowledge of the universal. And that's why we must learn about universals also. Universals is in the realm of metaphysics. The particulars you learn in the realm of physics and mathematics. So, ma bihi syai'un huwa huwa, what makes a thing what it is. The first huwa is existence. The second huwa is the quiddity. So this is very interesting for us to really appreciate what Professor al-Attas is discussing here. Because remember I was saying to you, existence, this nature of existence, because it is in the Arabic word is bita'alluq. It is in it's working in union with other attributes of God. So this wujud, dia ada iradah, dia ada qudrah, dia ada ilm. Because of that, it works to create these things. That's why, how does it create these things? Well, this is what is discussed earlier, deeper. It's called something called istidadul asli, the primordial potentialities. Because when Allah Ta'ala says, "Idza arada syai'an," when he wants to create something. Arada, the irada in him. Syai'an, an yaqula lahu kun fayakun. Be, and it is. That be, that kun tu, is what is also referred to as nafas ar-Rahman, the breath of the merciful. Kun, he's breathing. These are all majazi, okay? These are all discussion majazi, trying to explain to you how everything comes into being. So kun tu is the breath of the merciful. It's also al-amr, you know. When it says wa ilallahi turja'ul umur, it refers to the creation of things actually return to him back. Umur, not just things, but the command of be, you return back to him. So إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. So he breathed into this existence. This existence later on, it takes on something which is individually for the thing, and that is the process of what is called the ta'ayyun. Now, how does wujud becomes things? Oh, that's at the end. We are jumping. I don't want to go into it yet. This one, and also this the 5 degrees of this one. Okay. This is the process of what is from wujud becoming things. Now, when you see this diagram, you see it is as if it is going through one step. No. It is instantaneous, it is dynamic, it is active, it is in fact so fast that you cannot imagine. Cuma this is just a diagram to make us understand. Okay? So, we can get to explain that in the next meeting lah. So, ma bihi syai'un huwa huwa, then we discuss about something exists and what makes something, which is called the quiddity. Okay, the mahiyah of something. Yang menyebabkan sesuatu itu, benda itu. This Zainiy is different from this Zainiy, although same name, same material. The form is a little bit different, you know. So, manness is in there, you know. The form is different, you see. But even inside him, they are different from me. So that's why this is called the wusu' in Arabic, you know. The capacity, the carrying capacity. With it also, lifetime guarantee. He will live as long as his time allowed. And that is called matbu'. He's been imprinted with it. Okay. So where is it this imprinted? It is imprinted is what is called the ayan, the archetypes, the ayan. And this is why when Prof. al-Attas referred to Taftazani, Aqaid an-Nasafi, I forgot to bring the book. Dato has it.
Yeah.
The Aqaid an-Nasafi, the oldest known Malay manuscript. It begins with the line, you know, after Bismillah, Haqa'iqul asya' thabita wa ilmu biha mutahaqqiqun. The realities, hakikat, of things, haqa'iqul asya' thabita, they are firmly established. Realities of things are firmly established. Wa ilmu biha mutahaqqiqun. And the knowledge concerning them can be verified. This is very fascinating, because for people in the field of epistemology, knowledge is only, as Prof. al-Attas says, possibility of knowledge. See? But for us, we have gone beyond the possibility of knowledge, but they can be verified. Mutahaqqiqun. The word is mutahaqqiqun from the word haq. This is why another thing that we see in the vocabulary of metaphysical discussion in Islam, the word haqa'iq is derived from the word haq, meaning we are discussing about something which is true and real. We are not discussing something that is conjured up in the mind, you know, buat-buat. Yeah. No. That's why if you follow Western philosophy, because they don't have proper words. They made up words. They call it monads, they call it this, they call it that. Everything just to confuse you, because they don't have the real vocabulary, partly because their knowledge is not derived from revelation. When we say that our knowledge is derived from revelation, they say, well, you are doomed.
But how what is the basis of their understanding of metaphysics? If say for example there is no, they are not religious. They don't take Bible or Taurat as the basis. So how can they explain about quiddity and essence in this case?
That's why they rely on Greek philosophy. That's why they rely on Greek philosophy, and they got Greek philosophy through the Arabs. And that's why until today they must still read Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, because to give life in their philosophical discourse. Otherwise,
tak ada apa nak bincang.
Nothing to read about.
Yeah.
That's why somebody, I forgot who was it, saying that without the Muslim contribution to philosophy, philosophy will be dead. They are saying that present-day philosophy is footnote to Aristotle. Yeah, that's not so important. The important is the Muslim carried philosophical discussion alive, making alive until today, because we see it as the alternative, alternative, not an alternative, but the other side to our usuluddin, to our metaphysical worldview. That's why we have to keep on answering them. You see, if we don't answer them, and this is the danger. People are saying, oh, this is tasawwuf falsafi, this is kalam, this is falsafa. You don't teach them, you have a blank mind that cannot deal with metaphysical problems. This is what we are facing today, Dato. Yeah. The idea of trying to teach falsafah semasa. What are you teaching? You are teaching what? Do you want to teach ethics from the Western point of view? Do you want to teach ethical moral conduct from Buddhist point of view?
Yeah.
You want to teach metaphysics or ethics from virtues from Islamic point of view? Then you see a difference. That one is revelation based, and the others are not really revelation based. And this is why we keep always, disagreeing with one another, saying, you teach Islam to us, you are teaching religion to us. But that's the thing, we are religion based. We cannot be apologetic to it. That is what our religion, our civilization is. And that's what this Madani government is all about. Otherwise, apa benda ni? Not Madani, betul tak? It becomes apa benda ni? So,
okay, we have 10 minutes to go. Anyone would like to pose question? Yes, my wife, philosophical, metaphysical question.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum Ustaz. Nak tanya connection between kan melalui proses fana kemudian baka dan baru dekat existent wujud. Proses fana baka and then existent wujud. Dan melalui wujud tu Allah menggunakan asma husna-Nya pada setiap individu untuk terjalinya Allah. So can you explain?
okay. Where does in this whole discussion the whole idea of fana, baqa and existence is somehow put together? What we are discussing about, what Professor al-Attas is trying to bring about again here, is to appreciate the idea that existence is active and real. And we, at the very core of it, I think, we are made of existence. But existence is the very essence of our being. But we have not yet appreciated, and this is why what is happening, the idea of fana and baqa is that we have not yet appreciated its process. You, I, many of us listen and read, that's what it is. We have not really appreciated the experience of it. The experience of it, as I said, and what Professor al-Attas has written, as what happened to Musa alayhi salam, the extended version of it. If we were to see this, because fana and baqa is when you lose your existence, which is Allah Ta'ala brings you out of existence, the khalqan jadid. Okay, you went through a process of fana, and then when you are to be brought back again, that is the baqa, to carry you on. Okay, that is existence being. But we don't have that, we are not gifted. That's what Professor al-Attas is saying here. We have not been gifted with that experience. We somehow experience it unconsciously. But some people the gifted ones, they are able to experience that consciously. And this is why for those of you in the field, there's no such thing as wahdatul shuhud. You cannot. See? You cannot have wahdatul shuhud at the moment of this happening. So the wujud is actually experiencing the dhawq, the dhawq, the experiencing of you being taken out of existence and then being brought back to existence, and to be able to feel that. Musa was given that. And there were others who were experiencing that. I forgot the name, you know. When he woke up, he saw his dead animal. It's in the Quran. I forgot who that person is. No, there are other persons who were gifted with that experience. But for us, alhamdulillah, in a sense, Allah Ta'ala spared us from that. But that is the reality of what is called the experiential part of fana and baqa. But we do somehow appreciate it in the sense that, as I said, you know, because Allah Ta'ala gifted us with knowledge. When we arrive at a certain, okay, let's say Zubair, you know, 10 years ago, he doesn't know anything about what Professor al-Attas is talking about. Right? No clue. He doesn't know al-Attas, isn't it? But now, at your home, he felt a sense of revelation, something being open to his understanding. See? That is at the level of understanding. Can you imagine if you were at the level of being resuscitated, macam like Khamak Khayyam was saying, you know? So that my past fears, my past regrets, and my future fears can somehow be... That's why we are very hopeful people. We have no notion of despair. We have no losing hope. We are always being recreated anew. Okay, but we carry the memory because that's supposed to strengthen us. See? So the experiences of fana and baqa, in many ways, there are others macam apa, they talk about Yazid Bistami and others because they have a prolonged state of of intoxication, they call it, being under, in a sense. That's why they speak about in a language which is completely irrational to many people, you know, what is called satahiyat. They say things which is not rational and logical to the mind. Like Halash was saying, you know, I am the truth. At that time he was experiencing it. That's why Raniri says, it's true what he says, but it is wrong against the Sharia, so he must be executed. He must be executed. And the ulama agree on this fact. That's why the sayings of the Prof, the sayings being circulated among, there are some things that are made disclosed to you. You are not supposed to disclose to other people. It becomes no sense to them. And if there is what is called ifsha, if it is widespread, then it will create confusion and error in knowledge and what you call this thing, fitna. And to avoid fitna is far more important. Okay?
Yeah.
Sharif, here.
So saya tanya kalau experience tu yang kita cari tu adalah kita belajar tasawuf sebab kita nak experience yang hakikat tu kan. So kalau kita ulama satu rasa hakikat tu lain, ulama dua rasa hakikat tu lain. So actually ada dua hakikat. So kalau saya apply logik yang simple, hakikat satu je, mana boleh dua. So macam mana tu? So zauki itu adalah bukan hakikat sama tu, kita tak rasa yang betul lah sebenarnya hakikat tu. Macam mana?
And this is why it's very important to understand that this experience is not like what is called repeatability in scientific understanding of experimentation. Different prophets have experienced different manifestation of the truth. Musa, at the very first experience, and Prof. al-Attas was mentioning this, he saw the burning bush. See? For the Prophet, he does not need to see anything. Because only Musa, arini jahran, you know, show me in clear manifest, you know, clear blue sky, who you are. And that's the level of him. And that's why the prophetic experience of the truth is different. He doesn't need to ask this. Ibrahim, he was saying the same thing, you know, I saw the moon coming down, saw the sun. La uhibbul afilin. See? So, experiencing this truth, yes, they are of different degrees, but it does not negate the truth of it. Yeah. So, this is why we must again look, that's a very good question, Sharif, because we must look at the idea of, because science, because for them they will call that subjectivity. And therefore it's not truth. They say truth is one. No, not necessarily. Because, when you eat something, you experience the taste. It's not the same taste as the other person, I remember Prof. al-Attas, he proved this to Winstead, because Winstead asked him the meaning of pedas. So he said, what do you understand of pedas? So Winstead says, hot. He said, what do you mean, sweating hot? That's not pedas. He said, pedas is heat on the tongue. It doesn't register in your stomach, because in the stomach it's ache. It's just heat on the tongue. Yeah, you're right. So you describe the thing. That description is important. That is why everything in the world which is true and real, and Allah SWT for that matter, has name and attribute. The attributes, the description, somehow, as they say, sifat tadullu ala mawsuf. The description will point to the very object that it verifies, that it identifies or describes. So that object is real, and that's why it's called dalam Islam covenants fulfill. Ism and musamma. See, the name points to that which is named. So macam kita kata Allah, but you do not know the form of Allah, because we have been trained that Allah has no form, and that's why it somehow does not negate the existence of Allah SWT. See? Now, as far as why we get different experiences, because of your wusa. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah does not burden the soul more and beyond its capacity to carry. Alhamdulillah, So that's why do not. I want loud like he. No, you cannot. Itu jealousy of the wrong thing, Yeah. But you can ask for the understanding like he does. Sebab tu we can ask, make doa, fahmul anbiya, but not ilm of the anbiya. You cannot, because the Prophet has knowledge which is beyond our carrying capacity. But we can have understanding, Understanding is a different thing from ilm, because ilm is really an amana.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Zainiy. I think we have to stop this very philosophical evening for us. And I wish that next session, I don't know when, because I'm not sure whether we can call this session during Ramadan or not.
But I think it'll be difficult.
Very difficult. And then we have to delay a bit, probably in Shawwal. So I think there are three things that we could think about to understand the subject matter. We are talking about metaphysics, and there are now company called Meta, and then this company is providing services that we don't have to meet people, but we are friends to many people. I don't know how we relate ourselves with these people. Second, which is also important, what about the prolegomena to physics in Islam? Now we are talking about metaphysics. What about the physics in Islam? That's very important as well, because now people are confused between male and female. I respect Trump, because Trump said there are two sexes, gender. One is male and female. So for that matter, I strongly support Trump. Otherwise, we have 18 categories. So that's very difficult. Professor Tan Sri Azman Mokhtar mentioned to me, his daughter is studying in Columbia University, and she has to declare gender, and then there are 18 categories, so you have to tick which one yours. Yeah. So it's very, very confused. I think there is a physical confusion on the physics part of the human being. Then finally, probably this also big thing in education now, which is evidence-based movement. You must show evidence, and you must show the whole processes in order to arrive into conclusions. So evidence must be there. I think if you take this discussion into evidence-based kind of framework, or this framework to be put in evidence-based context, I think people will be easier to understand, as we mentioned earlier. Yeah, where is God? So it's overlapping between. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not like Japanese. Japanese say that, oh, this house has a God looking after this house, so I have to pray this God. Yeah. So keluar tu dia pray different God lah. So they have 8 million gods. So many gods, and they say that they are the most religious because they have 8,000. We have only one. So this is something very interesting discussion that people now, I think, more interested on meaningful life, and then discussion not only on this worldly life but also hereafter. So with that, I conclude this session. We thank Haji Kamaruddin, your name was mentioned earlier. He has just published this book, putting everything in its proper place. It's adil. Keadilan, buku keadilan. It's just launched last week, Saturday, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Congratulations to you, and thank you for this book.
I dah tanda dah, I chapter dah.
Which-
You would like.
Okay, I will read. Okay. Okay.
Also you mentioned mathematics.
Yes. So mathematics is very interesting now. Towards the end of your career, sometime you can formulate your life in mathematical form. So I have 10 factors or 10 parameters. So we go backwards. So we can derive into, okay, Professor Rami is very good in this. Probably you can check my calculation later or my formulation later.
Modeling, turns it into a modeling.
So I was interested to know this because I was in Potsdam recently, and during the tour in Germany. Potsdam is where Einstein spent between 1914 to 1932. Yeah, it's a very long time. He became German again after being Swiss for a while, when he stayed in Potsdam. And Potsdam is a very big thing. Yeah, I have a chapter in my book on Potsdam. So when you travel to Potsdam, there is nothing, only planetarium. The rest are all. This is where the street, Einstein Street, and this is his small office and whatnot. So he is just contemplating, he's just thinking, and then I try to understand what he wrote something, not too many. Most of his writing is not about physics. It's about justice, about peace, about war. Most of them, it's only a portion of it on physics and mathematics. Yeah, I think about 20% of his work. So it means that he is like us, talking about many things, and then most of them are just contemplating and just putting in numbers. In formula, in symbols. Yeah, instead of in prose in particular. So this is very interesting for us to learn from. So with that, I conclude this session. Thank you everyone for your time with us. Thank you also our colleagues online. I'm not sure how many thousands today. Huh? Not yet. You have to wait. Yeah. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.